Hello gamers, it's Meg here.
And I'm Alex.
And welcome to Camp Co-op.
This is going to be a few things. Camp Co-op in general, we have a video talking about what Camp Co-op isn't. You can check that out. This is our start of our Frosthaven playthrough. It's shining off the light. This is the start of our Frosthaven playthrough.
It's shining bright like a diamond.
Shine bright like a diamond! We're going to be going into, in fact, we're going to have to get rid of this box. It's so large. If you want to take that and put it off to the side. This video is going to be a few things, and we're going to go ahead and talk through that. We'll have timestamps, all that stuff. But the most important thing for you to know is we are not currently playing the game.
We are not currently playing the game.
We're about to. We're about to. In fact, you've already started. We're going to be diving into this. This is us picking our characters, or more specifically, we've picked our characters. This is us going through a high-level overview of these 6 starting classes in Frosthaven, the ones available, which ones we considered, which ones we settled on, as well as what our starting deck is going to be, and giving you a highlight and overview of those cards, so that when you dive into that playthrough, which will be coming shortly, we'll have that up soon, when you dive into the playthrough, you hopefully have an understanding of what we're playing and why. We'll talk through our turns, we'll do our stuff. This is kind of walking you through our starting picks, our starting classes, our starting deck, how the game is going to look like for us.
Yes. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, there are different classes available, and you will retire your class and then unlock new ones. So there are a ton in the box. There are other ones for us to explore, but these are the 6 that we get to see from the beginning.
Yeah, and from those 6, I don't know, how many did you consider?
Consider?
Yeah, how many were you tempted by?
3, only because I knew you were going to lean toward another one. Otherwise, maybe 4.
Gotcha. So, and I hear that as well. Meaning, for me, the number is 3 as well. There were 3 that I more strongly considered. But then from there, even within those 3, why are we missing one? Oh, because yours is sleeved over there. Never mind. From those 3, the one that I knew you were picking, I didn't even consider at all because I knew you were picking it. I knew you were very interested in it, I should say. From the others, there were 3 I was very interested in, and then all of them in theory I was interested in. But we're gonna go through that. We're gonna tackle 3 of these classes, 3 of these characters each. I have 1, 2, 3. Where's the 3? There's 3. Okay, you need to remember yours is off to the side. But yeah, we'll go ahead and dive into this. And I guess starting off,
What's your third? You're doing this one?
The 3 that I considered were these 3. More strongly. We'll talk about all of them. But do you want to take the first one? Should I take the first one?
I can go first.
Go for it.
So I've already gotten to play a little bit of Gloomhaven, so I've actually played with this class already. It's what I took for my other campaign. And that's the Boneshaper, which is this symbol.
Yes.
And the Boneshaper is really unique. We're just opening these up, right? Are we showing some things off?
I wasn't sure how much we wanted to go into the cards of the classes we didn't pick. I was going to talk about what they do and how they do it, but we could certainly talk about specific cards.
I think we can show just a little bit. So this one is all about summons. So you start off with only 6 health. You're in Gloomhaven and Frosthaven. There are different health tracks where some start around 6 and then 8 and then 10. I think that might be a little wrong, but you definitely have different health levels for depending on the type of character. So this is a weaker character, but they have these skeleton summons that they play with. So it's a little unique where you have to be paying your health to be able to summon them. I have not been really enjoying it for this class. A lot of their other cards are manipulating the summons, moving them around, having them do attacks, and there's very little healing. I think it's definitely a tricky balance that I haven't been able to figure out quite yet. The thing that I do love is that these skeletons, they don't get banished. So this symbol here means that once you use the card, it gets banished permanently for the entire scenario. But when these guys die, they do go back to your discard pile, so you're able to get them back again. But I just haven't been able to find a good balance of keeping them in play.
Now, one thing I haven't seen fully, and I guess let's keep it spoiler-free so to not spoil, but I would sort of going from the Gloomhaven starting classes, I believe the idea of a summons card that doesn't banish itself is new. I believe it's a new concept.
Yes.
Without spoilers.
Yes.
I don't know what later classes. I'm saying from the 6 starting classes to focus on. I
don't think in base Gloomhaven there are any summons
that stick around.
I don't know if there are any summon classes.
No, but there's summon cards. I'm saying there's cards and there's summons.
Yes.
In general, when cards summon in Gloomhaven, those cards go away on our left. This one over here has the interesting thing about the Deathwalker. No, the
Boneshaper.
Boneshaper. The
I keep wanting
Boneshaper.
to say Necromancer, which is what they are.
Yeah, the Boneshaper effectively it pulls from your own health, but it gives you a card that you keep reusing, so it's an interesting balance.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one for me. That's one of the classes I definitely was very interested in, but because of the fact that I like the idea of summons. But in practice, I've also always been let down by summons, which has been your experience with it so far.
Yes, and the other issue is that the Boneshaper has such low health that it's very hard to use your health to be summoning these guys. So it's not too bad having them, it's more the issue of being able to heal back up. Now, there are other classes that we're going to talk about later that do healing for allies. That is not what I'm playing with. I'm playing this one with the Geminate. That's the team up that we have. So I don't think it's the best team up for this class. I think this class could be a lot stronger when it has allies that are healing it.
Makes sense. For me, my first class that I considered, there's three primary ones. The Boneshaper is definitely one I was intrigued by, and we'll get into your others as well. But Deathwalker. Deathwalker is one that I definitely was intrigued by, because Deathwalker is a class that relies on shadows, which first of all is thematically cool as anything, but in practice is cool too. The Deathwalker starts off a little slow, because they have to get those shadows onto the board. They have to start putting out cards that will spawn shadows, whether because the card spawns shadows, or because you're targeting an enemy and killing it, and it spawns a shadow. There's different ways to get the shadows on the board. From there, the shadows move around the board. You have other cards that will let you do things like move a shadow up to 5 hexes, move all your shadows up to 2 hexes. You have different ways of moving the shadows around the board, which is key because you often can jump to shadows. You can move to shadows, you can retreat to a shadow and avoid all damage and consume the shadow. That's a fun one. Like, when you get hit with like 8 damage attack, rather than discarding a card, you can just pop across the board instantly, consume the shadow, and avoid all damage. That's incredibly cool. You also have the opportunity to do things like jumping out of a shadow with your hand. Your hand like sticks out of a shadow across the board, slices 3 enemies up, and just hurts them from the shadow. All these things are incredibly cool. The idea of them are incredibly cool. This idea of moving shadows around the board, attacking from shadows, retreating to shadows is fascinating. The reason it didn't get picked for me is because despite how cool the class is, in practice, it is a slow start. When you start the scenario off, you have to get your shadows out. You have to get them into play. You have to start moving them around. And even if you move them around, if you hop to the next room too quickly, well, your shadows might be too far behind you. So there is a lot of maintenance around the shadows, even though the idea of what's happening with the shadows, incredibly cool. The maintenance around them, a little much. And my experience with Hatchet from Jaws of the Lion.
With the favorite.
Yeah, the favorite. I loved the concept of Hatchet, but I didn't love the concept of constantly retrieving the favorite. And that was an element of maintenance around the character class that didn't resonate as strongly with me. So Deathwalker is still very much in my interest level, and still one I might end up playing at some point when I retire a character and move on to the next. But it's both very cool, very interesting, and one I ultimately did not pick.
I believe there are some attacks that also spend the shadows, which
Yes.
had me a little... so I believe this is the class I may jump to. A little bit of a spoiler alert, that's not for this campaign. I'm not loving the Boneshaper. Again, because my other ally doesn't have healing, so it's not very helpful. That I think I may try this class next. And the thing that I was a little worried about, that we'll see if it's a good balance, is when you're spending the shadows to be able to do attacks.
Yeah.
I'm worried that won't work as well.
Could
but
be
I'm hoping
useful
it does.
for when you're leaving one room, moving to the next, and the shadows are otherwise useless. But then again, you have to go through that setup.
And a good thing is, if you summon a new shadow, you just take the last one off the board. So
Yes.
you can continue to summon shadows
Yeah.
even though all of the tokens are out.
Once you run out, you have multiple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What's your next class?
So this is the Geminate. The Geminate is very interesting.
And this over here, by the way, would be the Geminate. Over here, this class would be the Geminate, and this class would be the Deathwalker.
Yes. And this class is a, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to pull out of my brain the name of I want to say species, whatever they're called in Gloomhaven, a harrower.
Yes.
It was coming. I had it. This is a harrower, which I think is very interesting because harrowers have been the villains. They've been monsters in Gloomhaven, but you've never been able to play as one. So I really appreciate that they're doing something like that in Frosthaven. And something that's really cool is that you get 2 different hands of cards. So there's 2 different forms, and you pop between the 2 different forms. And I believe it's 2 hands of 7 cards, which is just really interesting. So this is what I'm playing with, or partnering with in my other campaign. I don't know a ton about it, but the thing that I know is that one is more melee, one is more ranged. So you're kind of trying to balance where you are on the board and what form you want to be in. Different cards will have you change between those 2 forms. So you need to, I believe that's what this symbol is.
Yeah.
So you do need to be able to play a card to transform to the other one. And something that's very interesting is that you keep your hands separate, but it all goes to the same discard pile. So at least when you short rest and things like that, you get all of the cards back. That being said, if you're discarding cards to negate damage, if you're in a particular form, you only have those cards. So as you start spending them and playing them, it's harder to protect yourself with things like discarding cards to negate damage.
Because you have to be mindful as you hop back and forth between the forms, keeping them balanced and functional.
And even using like the stronger burn cards that go away, you kind of have to make sure that you're balancing between the 2 forms and not completely losing everything from one of your forms.
Yeah, for me, the Geminate is a class that like I said, every class here was interesting to a degree. The Geminate, for me, the reason I was less intrigued by it is the idea of 2 separate hands that you can kind of manage. It was very reminiscent to me of the Spellweaver. The Spellweaver, in the sense that you have to burn cards, but you can pull them back, so you get that second wave. But the Spellweaver compensated for that by having a very small hand, and I never loved the feeling of a small hand. Even though you have two hands, I just didn't love the feeling of a small hand, and combined with the complexity level, they have 3 complex level for the characters. I believe the Geminate is one of the 2 3-level complexities. And I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try it some other time, maybe I'll look into it. That's the only class that I have not read through every single starting card. All the other 5 classes I've read through all starting cards to make sure I'm certain of my choice.
It seems very cool. It seems very interesting. This is one that I think will be better at a higher level once you can really customize your deck and pick which cards you're playing with, because you do only get 2 7-card hands. So as soon as you can start cultivating that and making it a bit better, I think it'll be more fun to play.
But that's also an interesting thing about it, because normally when you upgrade in Gloomhaven or Frosthaven and whatnot, you gather 2 cards and you pick one. In this case, you have 1 from each form,
and you pick
them. 1. So it's like it's almost like you don't even have a choice of 2, you have a choice of a form. But yeah. For me, my next class that I considered very heavily was the Bannerspear. The Bannerspear is a class that relies heavily on allies and relies heavily on setting up attacks and or heals and or different things all around the nature of the crew on the board. Now, at first glance, I almost immediately took this off my list because of the nature of that, even in original Gloomhaven, there are some classes that are better suited for larger player counts. And we're playing as a 2-player game.
This is making me wonder if that would be a good one to pair with the Boneshaper as well.
I wondered. I did wonder. Reading through some of these cards, I wondered having a little host of allies, because summons count as allies. And in fact, the way the Bannerspear compensates for the fact that even at lower player counts, it's still a functional class, is you are constantly able to summon allies. Allies that may not even do much for you, but allies that might just pop onto the board and just move around and set you up. Because you'll have things like, you'll have certain setups where that blue symbol is another ally has to be there. So you're here, an ally's here, and you're able to do a stronger level of attack because of that. You're also able to summon banners and various allies, various minions and banners that will go on the board, enabling your crew and or moving around the board to help set yourself up. You'll have like Unbreakable Wall, where you're able to like push back and do damage to a whole wave of people, but you need 2 of you there. So again, all that setup is in play over here. We have this tip of the spear, a person behind you, and you're able to do a pierce attack, through 2 enemies. So it's all about the setup. It's all about the navigation, and the class seems incredibly cool in both its strength and its support and the way it can add to the field in ways that honestly I am incredibly compelled by this.
See, I wasn't that interested in this one. I know there was the Demolitionist in Jaws of the Lion, and it also does play off of having allies around and certain people adjacent. The more people you play with, the better. Both of my campaigns are 2-player games.
Yeah.
So I just didn't really even look into this one. What do the banners do?
Banners are single things that get planted down, and they have an effect around the banner. So like everyone around the banner might have an augmented attack or whatnot.
And that counts as an ally as well?
So I believe
or
it counts.
Certain attacks.
I believe it counts as an ally, but they don't move.
Interesting.
So there's that trade-off there. So I believe it counts. Don't take my word for it. I believe it counts as an ally. Does not move. But yeah, very cool. The reason I didn't pick it has nothing to do with any of the mechanics of it. The reason I didn't take it was a functional filming issue. The nature of how so many of the cards rely on such a high degree of setup, I was concerned that for the sake of playthrough content, I would just be constantly bogged down by trying to overanalyze and overthink my turn in a way that I typically haven't been as exposed to in Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, and whatnot. And so for me, it's like, I'm still intrigued, I'm still interested. Maybe as we go through Frosthaven more, maybe again, this is a class I dive into. But for right now, I was like, you know what? Looks cool. This might be like an offline kind of playthrough as opposed to I need to really think and move and set up and manage additional stuff while filming a game playthrough. Yeah. To you, what's your class that you picked?
Ooh, the class that I picked are in these
And from here,
sleeves.
we'll go to the class that we picked, and then we'll go to the in-depth analysis of the cards we picked from there.
Yes, they're in these sleeves, so you should be able to already guess, but these are my sleeves that I always use when I play in Inox. I love the Inox race. It's my favorite one to play as. Slight spoiler for Gloomhaven, I love the 3 lightning bolt character. I do love the hatchet from Jaws of the Lion. I said the symbol.
I know.
I love the brute, which is one of the starting classes in Gloomhaven. So I knew when I was going to be playing this, I was going to drift toward this class, and it is the Drifter. So I'm very, very excited to play this one. I should only describe it a little bit right now.
Describe high level and why you picked it, and then we'll go into starting cards after.
I mean, I picked it just for that reason. I know I mentioned, like, the health tracks. This is one of the ones that are the strongest. They have the most hit points. It's one of the things I love to do in games, and it just does a lot of damage. Something that's very exciting for me compared to the Brute is that it also does a lot of ranged damage. So you're doing a lot of melee and ranged, and it also has a bit of healing, which is another one that I think would be great with the Boneshaper class, but I'm excited to see the healing abilities that it can do.
Yeah, very cool. For me, I ended up going finally with the Blink Blade. The Blink Blade, and by the way, this is the Bannerspear, this would be the Drifter over here, and over here we have the Blink Blade here. But for me, ultimately the Blink Blade came down to, it is a high level difficulty class, it is one of those level, the tier 3s along with the Geminate, and it's one that does so because of the way they manipulate time. The Blink Blade is constantly, I believe it's a Quattro, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to see the picture, but yes.
But, possibly, either way. But the Blink Blade over here, they manipulate time, so they have going fast or going slow. Every single one of their cards will have 2 initiative values, a fast initiative and a slow initiative, depending on what you're doing. The fast cards often also do additional things. You're moving faster, you're doing more damage, you're targeting more enemies. Occasionally slow has perks, but more often than not, slow has downsides. You're moving a little slower, you're a little more muddled because of the way you're moving and manipulating through time. The balance of that, why won't you just go fast all the time, is you can't. You have a limited pool of how you're managing and manipulating time, and so to that end, whenever you go fast, you are depleting your time resources, and whenever you go slow, you build it back up. So you have to go fast and slow, and the timing of which is very important. Having that opportunity to jump into combat to be able to like just quickly kill a few enemies, and now the enemies are dead, and you don't mind going a little slower as you move to the next room, catch your breath effectively. It has that pacing, but not only does it have the pacing of good versus bad, sometimes there are opportunities where slow is good. So a lot of it is about the opportunities. A lot of managing the Blink Blade is about finding the opportunities, and especially coming into combat as someone who loved the Mind Thief in the original Gloomhaven. I love that balance, even the Scoundrel as well. That balance of jumping into combat as a weak, puny little character, killing a bunch of people, and then being fine because they're dead or going invisible. That manipulation, that tempo of fast versus slow is almost present in those classes inherently. And in this case, the Blink Blade leans into it even further so with the mechanics, and so that's what pulled me in and resonated with me.
And show me the initiative part.
Yeah, so here we have the initiative. So you have the 60 versus 90, for example, or you have 12 versus 42. So you declare at the beginning of your turn whether you're going fast or slow, and then you're doing the effects on the cards. So for example, and we'll go through this more as we go through the cards. For example, this is going to be a 2 damage attack, but if you're going fast, you'll also get this effect. Whereas if you're going slow, that attack is lower.
Interesting.
So these boxes, the yellow and green boxes, are only in play depending on your tempo, and the initiative is only in play depending on your tempo. Everything else is always in play.
Yeah, this class I also did not look into at all because I pretty much knew this is what Alex was going to play. Yeah. I made that guess right when they came out. So I didn't read any of the cards, or even I've heard how the mechanics work, but I haven't even seen it yet. Yeah,
and from there, let's go ahead and go into our decks. I'll walk you through my deck first, and we'll go from there. I'm going to go through the cards that I picked, as well as the cards I did not pick. Very high level, quick, if you want to pause and look at the screen and all that, great. Otherwise, I'm going to go through it fairly quickly and cover, well, what's happening on a card. First of all, we have Power Leak over here. That's going to be a 4 damage top half over here, where if you're moving fast, if you don't have poison, you gain poison to add a target and gain an experience. So effectively, that can become, you become poisoned, but it's a 4 damage attack with 2 targets and an experience, which is pretty cool. Alternatively, if you're slow, it's a Power Leak where you're going to muddle yourself. On the bottom half, you're going to have a burn card, but you have a 3 movement card that could be augmented to be a move 7 card, which is incredibly cool. Alternatively, you can have a 3 movement followed by a 2 heal on all allies within range 1, including yourself. That's going to be the first Power Leak card.
And
from
Alex,
there,
I know we're going to get there, but how many cards does this class have?
10.
10.
I believe. Yes, 10. From there, we have Blurry Jab. Blurry Jab. Blurry Jab is going to be a 3 damage attack, which if you're moving fast is going to add a damage and a wound, and if you're moving slow is going to deal 1 less damage and muddle. So we have, that's the Blurry Jab over there. And then on the bottom half we have movement, either a 3 movement -1 or a 3 movement +2, and if you're going slow, an adjacent enemy suffers a damage. So again, even when you're going slow, this perks as upsides, so sometimes that can be very helpful as well. One of the things that's particularly frustrating in Gloomhaven is when you've done everything you can and that enemy is down to 1 damage, and you have to waste your time dealing with them. And that's where having these peripheral things like 3 shots to 3 enemies or just moving and dealing a damage can be incredibly impactful. From there, we're going to have Cascading Reaction. Cascading Reaction is going to be a fun one. I'm leaning heavily into this, in fact. You'll see this already with Blurry Jab. Blurry Jab does a wound. Let's remember that as we come back to things. But Cascading Reaction is going to be a 3 damage attack with wound and experience. And then again, if you're moving fast, then a 3 movement, then another 3 damage with wound and experience. So you get to wound 2 people and deal a bunch of damage if you're moving fast. If you're moving slow, your movement is negated by 1. Then on the bottom half, all allies add 1 to the move abilities that move from a hex adjacent to you to a hex not adjacent to you. So this one's not going to be that helpful for me as far as moving fast goes. I'm primarily taking the Cascading Reaction for the top half, although it will give me the benefit of a 3 movement even while moving slow on the bottom half, which is good for them because generally moving slow can be a problem. Although speaking of moving slow, we're going to move directly to Experimental Adjustment, which is going to be a very intriguing card. This is one of the cards that is very uncertain. As you build out your decks, you're going to have 3, before you get to level 2, you'll have 3 3 X cards that you can move into your deck in different ways. So picking and choosing what goes in versus not is part of the balance and what we're doing here. But experimental adjustment is going to be an interesting one that I don't think will come into play often. But you deal 2 damage to yourself, and then from there you have all enemies. If you're moving fast, all enemies within 2 suffer a damage. But then you also go invisible on yourself, so that can be helpful over here. Alternatively, for the enemies, you can slow down, you can muddle and immobilize enemies, all of them within 2 range. So it gives you a lot of opportunities there to completely, that completely slows down. Depending on what happens over here, you can try to figure out how you want to manipulate the battlefield and just stop everyone. No one's doing anything. You're just messing with time.
And something that is kind of good about that to show too is that that would be the slower one.
Yep.
So hopefully enemies would go first, swarm you, and
Yep.
then they're closer to you for you to then do it too.
Pause, exactly. A lot of manipulation there, a lot of interesting things. Then on the bottom half, we have, and it's not even a burn card, by the way. On the bottom half, we have an interesting one where for the first time, you actually have a moving slower increases your speed. This is a 2 movement card with loot if you're going fast, or 2 movement card with +2 movement if you're going slow, but then you immobilize yourself.
Ooh.
So you get a little boost in your slow movement, but you got to be prepared for the fact that you're locked in place.
Then you long rest next turn, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, honestly, yeah, that's what you do. Then we have Temporal Displacement over here. That's going to be a 2 movement if you're moving fast with loot, or just a loot. Again, the flexibility is there. You can just use this as a top half, go slow, call it a day, or you can go ahead and use it for the movement to loot as well. On the bottom half, you have a 3 damage attack. If you're moving fast, it's also within range. That goes to displacement. You're buzzing around the battlefield, you're hitting people. Or alternatively, if you're moving slow, it's just a 2 damage attack on the bottom. Still has that flexibility. There's a lot of flexibility in this class, but a lot of decisions to make. Over here, we have Drive Recharge. This is going to give you 2 time tokens. Time tokens are going to be your currency in the game. Whenever you go slow, you build up a time token, but there's ways to get additional ones so you can have multiple fast turns in a row, which can be very impactful.
And just to clarify, it's your currency in the game for this class.
For this class, correct.
Only specific to this class.
So the Drive Recharge will give you 2 time tokens, which is very helpful, but you do have to burn it to do so. On the bottom, it's going to heal yourself too, and then we have a few different things over here as far as the abilities. If you're moving slow, you're going to, I believe that's unarm yourself, disarm? I believe, or
No, that's Regenerate, I believe.
Regenerate.
Where it's like wound, but you heal every turn instead.
Oh, yes. There's a few of these, a few of the symbols I don't even remember. I've gone through the rulebook. I'm relying mostly on Meg over here. But we have some of these symbols over here. We have Blessing Yourself, and that's the one, that one's like...
That one's a new one. That one I'm not positive.
There's two new conditions that are like double damage or half damage or something like that. I believe that's a good one. We'll find out soon enough. But Drive Recharge is going to be one of my cards there. Then we have Twin Strike, another double damage attack, which is either 2, move 2, and then 3 damage. Or alternatively, it's no movement and just, a 1 damage and a 2 damage attack. So again, the balance of fast is almost always cooler. On the bottom, we have a 3 movement with a 2 negative movement if you're moving slow, but you could heal yourself too, give you that opportunity there. Or if you're moving fast, it adds Pierce to all your attacks this round. Again, lots of flexibility built into this class. Then we have Hit and Run, 3 cards left. Hit and Run is going to be 3 attack with Immobilize, although 1 less damage of slow, and then followed by a 2 movement if you're going fast. And the bottom half, I'm very interested in the bottom half one over here, Meg, because on the bottom half, we have on your next 5 attacks while moving fast, perform 3 at the end of the action.
Ooh.
So that can build you up. You put Hit and Run down and play, it's locked in, you lose the card, but if you put Hit and Run and play, you can set up your fast actions to have extra movement just built in. You just take an action and move, take an action and move. You don't have to worry about anything else. So that can be very flexible when you use that over there. Then we have Sand in the Hourglass. Actually, should do Sap Speed first. Sap Speed is going to be a basic 2 damage attack, but to 2 enemies. And if you're moving fast, plus 1 damage and advantage, which can be incredibly key.
Yes.
And then we have, on the bottom half, we have 2 targets for immobilizing within range 1. Again, lots of control here, lots of ability to mess with people. And then alternatively, on the slow side, this is a fun one over here on the slow side, you could ignore the slow effects of your other actions this turn. So Sap Speed gives you, again, that opportunity to play Sap Speed, immobilize 1 enemy, and also ignore the slow effect of the other card you play. Now, the one I'm most intrigued by is Sand in the Hourglass. I think this is a very cool opportunity for a card, but Sand in the Hourglass is going to be a wound attack. Now, we have a few cards that deal wound, and as I upgrade, I'll be taking more if they're present. I haven't looked at my upgrade cards. There's going to be
You're not supposed to.
I didn't. I made sure
Good
not to.
job.
Just level 1s and X's. There's going to be a wound within range 1. All enemies that have wounds suffer 2 damage. So I want to try to build up that wounds and then play Sand in the Hourglass to just hurt people. Then it has a little bit of element manipulation, which doesn't currently focus into my class that much. I'm not using elements that much. I'm generating them for others instead. But then the bottom half over here, we have a 2 heal, all within range 1. So that's all. It's going to include enemies as well. We have to be mindful of that. But then at the bottom over here, at the end of your turn, play 1 card from your hand. It costs one Hourglass, so one of our time thingies. But at the end of your turn, if moving fast, play a card from your hand to immediately perform the top or bottom action of the card. So you effectively get to play 3 cards in a turn.
Wow, that's great.
Which is, you have to time it well, because if you time it on a turn where you have an even number of cards, that could pull away a whole turn from your timing of the game. But on those turns, on the cycles when you know you're going to end with a dead card, it can be useful to getting that extra degree of action there. And again, not a burn card, so it has that flexibility.
I didn't know that you would have that card. That's really great. So in Jaws of the Lion, there's an item called Ring of Haste, and that's a one-time use that you can use an additional bottom ability.
That's pretty
So
cool.
I haven't seen, I don't think,
Ongoing.
being able to use extra action.
You have to be moving fast, and it costs you time. So there is a cost to it. It's not a quick, get out of jail free card.
That's still great.
As far as the 3 cards I did not pick, just going to why I did not. Overdrive is going to give us a shield while slow and add jump to all move abilities while fast, and it's going to stay in play. So that's very cool. The jumping on move abilities seemed very intriguing, and this overdrive is one I'm absolutely prepared to put in play if I need to. But right now I'm focusing on the if I need to. I don't want to put that card in play. I don't want to get hit while I'm slow. So I'm kind of like, I think it's a cool card, but it's one that's going directly into my, if I need these, if I find myself in these situations where this card would be beneficial, I'll probably grab overdrive. We have kinetic transfer, which is going to be a movement and then again an attack, as well as, I believe that's push over there, Meg? I believe.
Yes.
Yes, so in movement, attack, and push, that's going to be helpful. But generating elements doesn't really help me as much. And between the cards I already had, and again, some bottom movement as well, between the cards I already have, I just didn't feel this added enough to what I'm trying to get done. And then lastly, Borrow Time again is a very cool one. This is another X card. On your next 6 actions while slow, ignore all slow effects and perform immobilized range 3 at the end of the action. That one again seemed very cool. Gives you the opportunity to ignore some negative effects, but I already have some cards that will go and play and deprive my deck, and so I don't want too many of them, at least initially. And the bottom half of this is cooler in larger player counts or with summons, but this one's all allies add -1 to the move abilities, so you move -1, but I get to move twice the number of allies. So if we have 3 allies, I get to move 6, which could be cool, and this stays in play. This is in general, this one stays in play as you go for the round. It only stays in play for the round, sorry. But yeah, that one's where, because we're playing a 2-player game with no summons focus, I was like, I don't think that's that cool. It's like you move 1 less and I move 2. I can move that 2 without you moving 1 less.
Yeah.
So I think this works better at higher player counts, but I'm intrigued by the top half. And that's the Blink Blade.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to start playing,
Yes.
Alex.
After this. Actually after this, as opposed to when you usually say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally next. So I'm playing as the Drifter, and I kind of separated my cards out to go over them in different categories. We're going to go through 6 of the cards first. I have a 12-card hand, so we'll do 6, and then 3 to explain a mechanic, and then another 6 to kind of decide, or show why I decided between the cards that I did. So for this guy, we have No Remorse. This is another healing one, which I think would be great with the Boneshaper. But it's heal 3 within range 3, which is fantastic. And this bottom is one of the ones that I love to go for because I love attacking, but it's move 3, attack 3, and then move 2. It is a burn card, which makes me kind of sad about it, but I love when you can use a bottom attack. That's what I always look for, is usually bottom cards will either be an ability or movement, and when you can have an attack for the bottom of the card, I absolutely love that. The next one is Prudent Preparation. So this is one that will stay in play for me for the round, and it will give me 1 shield and 1 retaliate. Retaliate means when someone attacks me in melee, I will hit them back. And then there's another one that's heal 2 within range 3. So again, I'm going to be healing a lot, either myself or you. I'm really excited to have a very melee or very damage-based character that's able to do something like that. We have Vile Assault, which is attack 2 and muddle, and then attack 2 and wound.
Is that poison?
That's
poison.
wound.
Yeah, no, the top one. I believe that's poison.
Oh, you're right. It is poison. Why did I say muddle? It is. It's attack 2 poison, attack 2 wound, which I could attack 2 different enemies if they're both touching me. If not, I can hit the same one, and that's a good setup. I don't know why I said that, but that is a good setup because if you're poisoning them first, if you attack the same one again, that's actually attack 3. But again, this one's a burn one. It is what it is. And then this one is move 2, and then you'll heal 2 to yourself. So this is one where I'm healing only myself, but I'll take it.
That's going to be the first card she burns every game.
Yes. He means when I short or long rest.
Yeah.
Well, when I short rest, I don't have a choice, but when I long rest. We have Deadly Shot. This is attack 1, range 4, and poison. I'm excited to have some ranged attacks in this class. And then I also have move 4, which is great. I'm playing the 3 Lightning Bolt character right now in our Gloomhaven campaign, and my movement is a bit limited. Very much looking forward to moving 4. We have Violent Inheritance. This is attack 1 and then loot 1, which is great. When you loot 1, you loot for the tile that you're on and 1 are all the tiles around you.
And again, that goes back to the idea of those times where you just need 1 more damage than somebody, and this time you feel like you got a loot out of it also.
Yes, hopefully you kill them and then get a bunch of gold for it. And then move 4, attack 3 within range 3. So again, a very strong attack that's also ranged. It is a burn card again. This is a 12 card hand for this class, so burning them isn't the worst. But I'm a little nervous about burning things too quickly when we start playing. This is one of my favorite cards that I cannot wait for us to play with. Destructive Fury. So you're going to burn it whether you use the top or the bottom. And as you can see, you're either doing melee or a ranged attack. So this one, that's where I would be standing, and it will be attack 3 for everyone within that cone, or I'll be able to attack 3 within range 2 for that type of a shape. So if there are 3 enemies clustered, I'll be able to hit them all for 3 damage.
Yeah, either way, a lot of damage happening there.
Something I did want to say that I don't think we said before I go on to the other cards is we are showing what cards we chose as our starting hand, but we are not locked into that when you play these games. For both Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, you have your level 1 and level X cards. You can swap those ones out at any time. Yeah. So you can customize your deck, not at any time, between scenarios, not during the scenario or anything like that. That would be crazy.
Yeah. Like going back to that card over here, this Overdrive card, which lets me jump around. This is like one of the first cards I'm prepared to swap in if I find that jumping over things or having extra defense could matter for me.
Well, and I noticed this one gets you 2 experience, so I think you might want to sub that one in. I did notice that you're leaving an experience card out, and this one's also 3 experience. So
I focus
he
less.
might want it when I start jumping ahead in experience.
Yeah, that happens. We'll see. But that's the benefit. I could swap it in. I'm not locked into my choice. It's just more about our thought process.
So the Drifter also has this very fun mechanic. It's going to have 6 cards for us to choose from. I'm going to go over these ones first and then those 6. But they have cards where, let me show one of yours because I don't want to show mine just yet. But it's going to be cards like this where you have a track. So you have character tokens. You're going to drop your token on an ability, and every time you use it, you'll keep counting upward. So the Drifter kind of manipulates those and moves through them. So we have Fortitude. It's going to be attack 3, pierce 2, and then before applying any other bonuses, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities forward 1 slot, and then you can add 2 range. So I believe this is it's having you add the 2 range because you may not have one in play at the time. You don't have to have one in play to be able to use this card, but if you do, you'll move your character tokens forward. Now, something that's advantageous for that, going back to one of Alex's cards, is when you hit certain points, you'll get experience, which is very helpful, but also moving it forward on you is kind of adding a cost that you won't be able to use the ability later. And then the bottom of it is, whenever you kill an enemy, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. So this is one that I can leave in play for the entire scenario once I play it, and it will help me kind of bump back on that. Now, a rule that they did clarify is once you gain the experience for the particular circle that you cover, you will not gain that experience again. So if you get 3 total on a track, you will only ever get 3 total, which I think is a very smart move for them to clarify. Otherwise, you could just keep bumping around experience.
In the rulebook, or?
I believe it's on my character card where they
Gotcha.
kind of clarify things, and it may be in the rulebook as well, but I know it's on the character card. We have Draining Arrows. This is one that I'm so excited to use. It's attack 1, target 3, within range 2, and muddle. I'm just really excited to have range where I can target multiple things. Something that we're not going to super get into, but this little empty square means that we'll be able to augment the card later. So we haven't unlocked it. This is Frosthaven. It's a whole new game. We don't know the secrets, but there should be some sort of system that will help us upgrade these cards where we add stickers. That's what happened in Gloomhaven, but you had to unlock it. So I'm very excited to hopefully make this one a stronger attack, and then you do even more damage to multiple targets.
Even as is, muddle on a character effectively means they're going to draw 2 modifiers and pick the worst one.
It's basically disadvantage.
Doing that to 3 enemies can be incredibly impactful to save my life, which I appreciate.
And honestly, so with this augment part, I could make it a stronger attack, which is probably what I'll do with how I play, but I could probably add another target as well. So target 4 instead of 3, things like that. And then the bottom is move 3. If you are adjacent to exactly one enemy, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. So again, this is kind of moving with those abilities. Then we have Bloodletting, which is such a delicious name. It's attack 3. If you killed an enemy with the attack ability, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. And then again, I have another attack on a bottom card, which I am so excited to be doing. I know you're going to be running around doing damage, hopefully moving back afterwards. Yep. I'm going to be up there face to face with all the enemies that hopefully I won't have to move toward them. I won't need a bottom movement action, so I'll be able to attack and add wound.
Yeah, and in general, you always have the flexibility, of course, of a top card can always be used as a default 2 attack, and the bottom card can always be used as a default 2 movement, so they still have the flexibility should they be needed.
So we've gone through 9 of the cards that I've chosen. So there are 6 more where I've chosen 3 and the other 3 I won't be playing with, but these are all going to be ones that have those types of abilities where I'm moving my character tokens around. So I'll go over the ones that I chose first, mostly because I don't want to mess up my piles, but we'll go through that. And balance-wise, because these ones stay in play, they don't come back to your hand, they don't go to the discard pile, that I wanted to make sure I wasn't playing with too many. This may be a balance that I might want 2 in play or 4 in play in my deck, but I think 3 is a good balance and compromise for me to start with.
And going back to that non-fixed nature of things, should you find out that through the scenario you end up with more cards consistently, you have the flexibility to put another one in and say, I'm going to power up even more.
And you guys are going to be shocked because it's 6 unique different types of abilities, but I kind of went for the strong ones that add damage.
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked.
So let's go through. We have Relentless. Move the character token on 2 of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. So this is one that if this isn't the one that I have in play yet, I'll be able to use it to help these other 2. And then the bottom of it is one that I would play. It would stay in play for me permanently until it's completely filled, and then it would be banished, which is what this symbol is. And it says, on the next 6 attacks targeting you, performed by enemies within range 2, gain retaliate to range 2, which I'm so excited for a ranged retaliate. That's something I have never had in these games.
Our enemies have.
I am so excited to retaliate on them because often I will move up to an enemy in Gloomhaven, and then they will move away and then ranged attack me, and I cannot wait to have this in play.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. We have Precision Aim. All of your ranged attacks have +1 range. On your next 6 ranged attacks, add +1 attack. So that one is one that I could use with that one that muddles everybody, the 3 targets. And now it's doing that 2 damage already.
Yep.
And if I augment it on top of that, it's doing 3 damage to all of them instead. I'm so excited to be playing this game. And again, it's the same as all of the other ones where I'll be filling the track, gaining experience, it'll stay in play, and then get banished on me. But the bottom, if I choose to use that first, is move 2, and then move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. So it's a lot of playing with these different tokens. And then we have Crushing Weight. On the next 6 melee attacks, add +2 damage! I cannot wait. And the bottom of it is heal 2 within range 2 and move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot. I am going to say that so many times in this video.
Yes. That is it. Those are the starting...
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not it.
That's not it.
The 3 she didn't pick. And why?
So these are the 3 that I didn't pick. I'll read through them quickly, but you guys can guess. It's just that the persistent abilities are not the ones that I wanted to do. This one's adding damage, this one's adding range, and this one's that retaliate, which is just so cool. I can't wait. So we have Continuous Health, attack 2, range 2, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot, and on your next 6 heals, add +2 healing. That does sound really good if there's a certain scenario where we're getting really rocked. I can even use that to add to the heals that I do for you. It's just not my jam. It's not what I would play. Unbreakable, same thing. I can move my character token on 2 of my persistent abilities backward 1 slot. Now this one's interesting because it's 2 different abilities. Yes. I can move 1 token. Sometimes it's move 1 token twice. Sometimes it's move, but I'm not going to play with this one. And then on the next 6 sources of damage from attacks targeting you, gain shield 1. That's fine. I just don't think I need it. Not interested. And then Sustained Momentum. Attack 2, move the character token on one of your persistent abilities backward 1 slot, and then the bottom is on the next 6 move abilities, add +2 movement. That's something I hope I can do with an item. There are a lot of boots that will do different things that can augment your movement that I'm just hoping that I don't need that, especially with you zipping around the board. But
also, again, the same flexibility is always in play. If we find that I'm always constantly ahead of her in the games, I'm waiting for her to catch up, there's opportunities to mess around and have you run around the board. But yeah. That's just it. These are the starting classes, the Blink Blade and the Drifter, the my 10 cards, your 12 cards. We're going to be diving into this very shortly. You can check that out depending when you watch this video. The first gameplay is already up and running. If you're new to this whole series that we're doing, we'll be doing gameplays on a regular, consistent basis until we finish Frosthaven. They'll be on the channel, they'll be in a playlist, you can check that out. We don't know exactly how frequently they'll be going up. we'll be doing what we can to get them up as fast as possible and to just go through the Frosthaven experience. There'll be spoilers galore. This is the closest
That's what
you're
I
going to
was
have.
just going to say, is this is a great time to warn you guys. Every video after this will have a lot of spoilers. You'll be seeing the scenarios, you'll be seeing the enemies, and as we unlock different classes, you'll be seeing future classes.
Yeah, everything here has been spoiler free from here onwards, and we'll try to put that warning at the end of each video. We'll try to, but yeah, hopefully you're joining us for the journey. Make sure to subscribe down below, like all those things and stuff like that. Eventually, she'll have a Patreon up. You can check that up. But
and if you don't want any spoilers for Frosthaven, but you've already played Gloomhaven, we do play that on Twitch, so you can check us out playing through the Gloomhaven campaign if you still want to get a little bit of the experience, but not any spoilers yet.
Yeah. And with that, I'm Alex.
I'm Meg.
This has been Camp Co-op. This is Camp Co-op. Welcome aboard as we start this journey, and we'll see you shortly.
Let's get started.